Take a network break. I'm Drew Conry-Murray.
I'm Jonna Johnson.
Help yourself to a virtual donut and we'll jump into the week's top networking and IT news. We have product announcements from HPE, Broadcom, and Amazon, acquisitions by AT&T and Okta, and some listener follow-up and more. But first, we're sponsored today by Do-It. Cloud isn't just a cost center, it's your growth engine. Do-It Cloud Intelligence aligns every dollar with your business intent, surfaces hidden inefficiencies, and turns alerts into engineering-ready tasks. CUI teams are 10x more likely to hit business outcomes. Visit doit.com, that's DOIT.com, to unlock intent-aware FinOps. John, I mentioned we have a couple of follow-ups. I'm going to start first with a note about AI agent attacks. We did a story about security researchers who found that an AI agent in the Perplexity browser can easily be tricked into interacting with phishing pages, fake websites, and will act on malicious hidden prompts. So a listener wrote us to talk about a pilot program being run by the AI company Anthropic. It's testing a Claude extension for the Chrome browser. The extension can take actions on your behalf, so do things like manage your calendar, schedule meetings, draft emails, and, quote, handle routine expense reports. The listener writes, regarding attacks on AI agents, I found this post from Anthropic to be interesting. I like that they're very upfront about the risks and that they fully expect their pilot users to be attacked. Quite refreshing compared to the head-in-the-sand approach taken by many tech companies. Yeah, I read the link that he shared, and yes, it is refreshing. The post makes it very clear upfront. Anthropic recognizes there are security risks of a browser agent. I will note, in talking about the risks, Anthropic seems like it's mostly focused on prompt injection attacks. There are a host of other browser-related threats that the extensions are going to have to contend with. Also, if you're interested, Anthropic's looking for volunteers. If you want to get out there and help them get a better sense of what the risks are. It doesn't say anything about any kind of assistance or compensation from Anthropic if you do run afoul of an attack. So this is definitely a caveat emptor. And Johnny, you had something else to say about Anthropic.
Yeah, there's a little bit more Anthropic news, and this may temper your enthusiasm for jumping on them. They dropped a little bombshell the other day. Unless users explicitly opt out by September 28th this year, Anthropic will use consumer chat data to train future AI models. So this is an opt-in by default. It's a huge reversal from where Anthropic has been previously, which was the privacy-first alternative to ChatGPT. And previously, they automatically deleted user conversations after 30 days. That is no longer going to be the case. Here's the kicker. The policy affects all consumer tiers, Claude Free, Pro, and Max users, plus those using Claude Code. Interestingly, it does not affect enterprise organizations. Those are unaffected, especially if you're getting API access through services like Amazon. So essentially, what they're doing is creating a two-tiered privacy system. If you are a consumer, you must opt out to stay private, and I'm not sure how much longer that privacy will actually last, given this U-turn. If you're an enterprise, sure, we'll protect your data. So if you're a consumer wanting to test drive some of those new features, you need to be aware that you need to explicitly opt out of giving your data to them, because otherwise all your data belong to us.
You have a note here that says conversations from users who don't opt out will be retained for 5 years instead of that 30-day
until they make the next change and it becomes 10 years or however long it's useful.
To infinity. Yeah.
To infinity. Yeah. This is they are within every right to do that, particularly for the freeware. Sure. I would be really ticked off if I were paying any amount of money and had opt out as a requirement. That is completely bonkers, particularly given their marketing and positioning. So I understand they need to do it. And I just would say, as you mentioned, Drew, caveat emptor, because there are a lot more risks than you may be aware of jumping into doing free testing for Anthropic.
Yeah. Yeah, so thanks for the listener for bringing that to our attention. I do think it's interesting. There was another follow-up. We talked about, Jonna, that the 7-year-old Cisco bug that was it's being exploited right now. And this listener wrote in to say, even though there's a CVE assigned to it, this isn't a bug per se, but rather a feature. And then a quote from the Cisco CVE page. This is about a smart install feature that's being attacked. The smart install feature incorporates no authentication by design, end quote. And yes, this is true. I did look at the CVE and it does say that. This person says, I see this CVE all the time when doing internal pen tests and routinely abuse it to compromise Cisco switches. The only patch is to completely disable the service with the no vstack command, as explained by Cisco. And yes, I did review the CVE. He's absolutely right. This isn't your typical sort of software vulnerability. It is essentially a feature that Cisco has not required any authentication for. It is a design choice, and the only way to protect yourself against it is to essentially disable the smart install feature. So appreciate that really useful follow-up.
I think I do appreciate it, but I also think it's hilarious. I did not have on my bingo card, it's not a bug, it's a feature for real for this morning. So,
Yes.
yeah, there you go, friends. You got your it's not a bug, it's a feature, but it's still a bug. I mean,
Right.
it's an intentional feature, but it's still a bug. So, yeah, and I do love the write-in that said, I abuse this routinely, as you should as a pen tester.
Absolutely. Again, we appreciate any kind of comment, correction, question, or query, whatever you want to follow us up with. You can hit us up at packetpushers.net/fu or packetpushers.net/follow-up. And we do love to hear from you. All right, Jonna, let's move on to our red alert.
Okay, well, we've got the red alert this week. First of all, we had 856 CVEs created, so we're down a little bit. That's not too bad.
Yes.
And from the week ending August 28th, and 2,087 updated. 445 were critical, scoring 9 or higher, and 29 got a 10 out of 10. The red alert this week goes to CVE 2025-7775, which covers a raft of remote code execution vulnerabilities in Citrix NetScaler ADC and NetScaler gateway systems. The good folks over at Shadow Server Foundation have reported that more than 28,200 vulnerable instances were exposed to the internet as of August 27th. That sounds mighty precise. The vulnerability is already being exploited in the wild, so yes, this is something to pay attention to. It affects many versions of standard and FIPS releases. Citrix has not provided any mitigations or workarounds, but they have released updates to fix the vulnerability as of August 26th and strongly urges immediate firmware updates. So basically, once again, the fix is update. The big thing here is that you are not safe if you have updated prior to August 26th, which is not that long ago. So do pay attention, folks.
Yeah, links in the show notes if you need to go take care of that. All right, let's move on to some news. We'll start with HPE. They announced a set of enhancements to their Mist AI operations platform. First, HPE says it's updated the backend models used by the Marvis AI assistant so that Marvis can better understand an operator's intent if they ask an open-ended question. For example, HPE says if an operator asks, "Why is this site slow?" Marvis is going to be able to better look up relevant performance metrics and offer an answer. And prior to this upgrade, you could still use natural language to interact with Marvis, but your questions did need more context around the problem you were trying to figure out. Now it sounds like you can use sort of broader, less specific questions to interact with Marvis. HP is also deepening the Mist integration with the Apstra intent-based networking software for data centers. The Marvis AI assistant can now make API calls to the Apstra graph database that tracks network state. This means network operators can use natural language queries via Marvis again to assist with data center operations. HPE says the integration currently supports almost 300 API queries, and the goal is to enable data center operators to accomplish more tasks via conversing with Marvis instead of going through the Apstra UI. Last but not least, HPE is also extending what it calls its large experience model. It was designed to help monitor user experience. The model was originally built around Zoom and Teams application performance data, can now incorporate network data and synthetic tests from Marvis Minis. Overall, I feel like there's nothing really super groundbreaking here, but it is aligning with HPE's goal of extending those Mist AI tendrils deeper into the Juno portfolio. I think generally I'm still waiting to see if there are plans for Mist to jump over the fence into the HPE portfolio. That is still TBD as far as I know.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I haven't heard anything on that, Drew. I tend to agree with you. Nothing really groundbreaking, but it's sort of methodical progress towards, as you said, the goal of extending Mist AI deeper into Juniper. And also, it really kind of highlights one of the roles of AI generally, which is really just better user interface. I know people keep talking about AI being intelligence, but it's intelligent the way a browser is in a sense. And I think this is a great use for it. I do recall that one of my friends who's a network engineer talked about how he could use, as it so happened, Claude to answer the question, in my network design, what have I missed? And these kinds of things are actually useful and helpful because they go and gather information from everybody else that's ever done anything. And the chances that somebody's done exactly what you're trying to do are almost 100%. So that's a good, useful use for AI. So again, nothing groundbreaking. Good to see it getting deployed.
Yeah.
Moving right along, EchoStar sells all its spectrum to AT&T. EchoStar is a U.S. telecommunications provider. It has sold all its U.S. spectrum to AT&T for $23 billion.
Wow.
That's about $9 billion more than the company was worth the previous morning, the morning before the sale. Why? Well, EchoStar operates Boost Mobile, the Dish Network, and Sling TV, and a defense telecommunications business under the Hughes brand. So if anybody ever wondered what happened to Hughes, now you know. It has faced complaints to the FCC about its underutilized spectrum. In other words, we don't have enough traffic. We are sitting on a pile of spectrum, so they turned it into cash. Good for them. Shares in EchoStar rose after the announcement. Going forward, EchoStar will continue to be an ISP and hybrid MNO. AT&T, meanwhile, gains an additional 30 megahertz of the 3.45 gigahertz midband spectrum nationwide and approximately 20 megahertz of the 600 megahertz low-band spectrum as well, all useful in its ongoing expansion and upgrade of its 5G services, especially fixed and mobile 5G internet access. I think the thing to think about here is, it's great that it's great to see the spectrum going to use, number one, and number two, telcos are really working. The big picture is that telcos are really working towards an all-in-one phone that will use satellite services, that will use landline, that will use everything available to connect you. And I think this is sort of another step on that route. So all in all, I think it's not particularly bad news if you happen to be an EchoStar customer. I don't expect anything to change. Good news if you are a future AT&T customer, which of course you don't know yet.
Right. Unless you're an existing AT&T customer, and then maybe you have a sense of that.
Yeah.
So EchoStar is not going out of business. I assume it's still going to be able to provide its services for Boost and Dish and Sling, et cetera.
Yeah, all of that's going to come through AT&T now. But yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, links in the show notes if you want more details. Just a quick break to tell you about our sponsor today, Doit. Cloud spend is just the surface. What really matters is how it drives performance, reliability, and speed to market. Doit Cloud Intelligence aligns every dollar to the intent of the workloads. It helps teams go beyond dashboards, surfacing hidden inefficiencies, resolving incidents faster, and aligning cloud operations with business priorities. One platform, unified signals, better outcomes across engineering and finance. Visit doit.com, that's DOIT.com, to unlock intent-aware FinOps at scale with Doit Cloud Intelligence. And we thank Doit for being a sponsor.
Absolutely. Also for having a really cool name. So moving right along, in the category of more product announcements, AWS is now making new custom Xeon 6 servers available. AWS had launched its Elastic Compute Cloud, EC2, R8i and R8i Flex instances, which are now new virtual servers running on custom Intel Xeon 6 processors exclusive to Amazon. It claims these instances will deliver 15% price performance gains over the previous generation and 2.5 times more memory bandwidth. Intel has built these Xeons with DDR5 7200 megaterabit per second memory clocked at up to 3.9 gigahertz, according to AWS. Intel says the increased capabilities reduce the need for specialized accelerators. The chips also provide built-in AI acceleration via Intel's Integrated Advanced Matrix Extensions, AMX, allowing AI inference and machine learning performance gains of, wait for it, up to 100%. A couple of links in the show notes. Kind of interesting to see where these are going to go, but there you have it.
I mean, I feel like Intel has needed some good news lately, and to have somebody like Amazon sort of, touting their hardware as a feature for this new service is, just sort of what Intel has needed for a while. It's been kind of bad news.
Yeah, and I do like the reduce the need for specialized accelerators. Take that.
Yeah, we know who they're talking about.
Right. So, and moving right along, Broadcom, the company everybody loves to hate, well, not exactly, but in some cases, is broadening its Ethernet reach with Spectrum-XGS Ethernet. Back on August 22nd, Nvidia announced the release of Spectrum-XGS Ethernet, which it calls a scale-across technology. Spectrum-XGS Ethernet is fully integrated into the broader Spectrum-X platform with auto-adjusting and distance-sensitive congestion controls, improved latency management, and better end-to-end telemetry. Broadcom says that Spectrum-XGS Ethernet nearly doubles the performance of the Nvidia Collective Communications Library and can accelerate multi-GPU and multi-node communications while delivering predictable performance across geographically distributed AI clusters. So kind of file this one under making Ethernet even better for AI kind of thing. So that
is this a Broadcom announcement or an Nvidia announcement?
This is actually a Broadcom announcement using the Nvidia chips.
Okay. I see. All right. Okay. Nice.
So
All right, moving on, Cisco has announced a new dedicated certification track for wireless networking. Instead of the CCNP Enterprise Wireless Concentration, Cisco's promising a full track dedicated to the wireless space. It'll start in March 2026, and Cisco's going to offer both a CCNP wireless and a CCIE wireless certification. Cisco says the CCNP wireless cert will cover topics including RF fundamentals, 802.11 standards, client connectivity, wireless monitoring, and of course AI. The CCIE wireless will include Meraki knowledge and expertise, plus Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 7. Yeah, not a lot to say here other than I think a smart move from Cisco. With a dedicated wireless track, it can extend its reach deeper into the wireless market and get its arms around those professionals looking for that certification.
Well, and I also think this is a little bit of an end run around a private 5G, because essentially one of the arguments is once you start getting into the more advanced wireless technologies, whether it's Wi-Fi or 5G, you need a lot more tweaking and tuning and fiddling and fussing to get everything to work. And so basically Cisco is saying, oh, stick with Wi-Fi and we will make sure you have that expertise or you are able to get it. Many, many years ago, I actually was CTO at a company where the CEO floated the idea of giving every engineer who got his or her CCIE a BMW. And I still think about that. Yeah, well, that was back in the day.
Right.
I don't think any wireless CCIEs are getting BMWs out of this, but yeah, it's nice to see that Cisco is kind of leaning on that. So,
yeah, I do. I mean, Cisco is really good at using its certification track as kind of a way to try to help build moats for its products inside enterprises.
Exactly.
And so this just seems like par for the course, especially given how tightly they're tying the Meraki product line to the CCIE wireless. So, yeah.
Exactly. And I've got to give them credit because quite honestly, if you have a solid certification program around your product, you are getting a whole lot more stickiness for those products. And
absolutely.
And that translates into higher margin directly. So it's a great move for Cisco. It's probably not a bad move for engineers who like to learn things and want to use their skills. So kind of a win-win unless you happen to be focused on enterprise 5G, in which case you just got whacked.
I also do think it's good for the wireless sector kind of as a profession, because sometimes it feels like sort of, I don't know, maybe not a subset of networking, but it's just sort of like, yeah, it's over here in the corner, when it's in fact a very complex discipline. So in some ways it's getting the acknowledgement it deserves.
Yes, except keep in mind this is only half the wireless is getting the acknowledgement it deserves, because enterprise 5G,
yes. Okay.
Isn't there, right? Like, and it's just another little nudge to say, think wireless, think Wi-Fi, think Cisco. Nothing wrong with that from a Cisco perspective, but it does steer people away from the competitive technologies out there, which is what it is. Can't fault them for doing that, but I would just highlight that it's not necessarily good for the wireless industry. It's good for the Wi-Fi and particularly the Cisco Wi-Fi industry.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would also love maybe to see more of a focus on wireless security, particularly around IoT. I think that's a gap that could be filled.
Absolutely. Okay, so moving right along, Okta is acquiring Axiom. Identity services provider Okta is acquiring Axiom Security, which does privileged access management for cloud, including SaaS, as well as databases and other critical resources. Okta will roll Axiom's core technology into its existing PAM offerings to expand access controls across more resources. Also, will build out a single point of admin for privileged access across all privileged resources, both in cloud and on-premise, and will offer just-in-time access to limit or eliminate the need to allocate standing privileges either to a person or software entity, replacing them with time-limited access. Okta says privileged access controls with these capabilities are key to mitigating AI and agentic AI risks. I think that's a bit of a stretch, guys, but it's certainly important to have time-limited access. It's also good to have event-limited access so that you're able to say things like, so long as this trouble ticket is happening, I have privileged access. As soon as the trouble ticket has been marked resolved, I get kicked out, and there's no word yet on whether that's going to be something that's going to enable. As for the mitigating AI and agentic AI risks, well, yes, kind of, sort of. I mean, it's good that you can sort of clean up and lock the doors after a reasonable period of time, but I think that's a bit of a stretch to sort of sound hip-hop and happening for Okta. I think it's a good move generally.
Any word on how much Okta's spending on Axiom Security?
I don't know, and you would think that would be a pretty basic one. But
well, sometimes they don't like to say, so.
Yeah, I was looking really. I was a lot more intrigued by the integration feature, which I think generally is good for customers of either Okta or Axiom. That degree of integration is good, and it's also nice that Okta is beefing up its existing PAM. So,
Yeah, and coming on the heels of Palo Alto Networks acquiring CyberArk, it does
yep,
feel like the identity space has a little heat to it these days.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And Okta is one of the big fish there, so it just makes
Right.
sense.
Yep.
I just wish they hadn't sort of tried to ride the agentic AI trendiness to this. They're not wrong, but it's a side note to what they're really bringing.
Sure. You got to put it in the press release, though. It's
Exactly.
otherwise the PR team gets fired.
Right.
Moving on to some financial results, we'll start with Dell. They reported results for Q2 2026. Revenues were $29.8 billion, a record for the company, and up 19% year over year. Net income was $1.1 billion, up 32% over this time last year. By business unit, servers and networking brought in $12.9 billion in revenue, up 69% year over year. Storage revenue was down 3%. On the client side, commercial client revenue was just under $11 billion, up 2%, while consumer revenue of $1.7 billion was down 7%. So obviously, AI servers sales are driving these results for Dell and will continue to do so. Dell estimates it's going to ship $20 billion worth of AI servers for its fiscal 2026. It originally forecast $15 billion, so it is literally shipping these like hotcakes. One thing, though, that jumped out at me is that despite a record revenue, they're only getting like $1 billion of net income on $30 billion in revenue, which seems like they're slicing those margins pretty thin. And there's a Reuters article that cites an analyst note from JP Morgan saying Dell has been sacrificing profit and margin in order to be price competitive and land large customer deals. So I guess they're hoping maybe they can bulk up on income over time if they actually get their foot in the door with these deals. I don't know, John, thoughts there?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the plan. And I would also say that in general, these are fairly low margin businesses. So,
Right.
yes, I think that's what Dell's doing. By the way, circling back to the previous one, I just looked it up. Shame on me for not knowing it. Apparently, Okta paid roughly $100 million, reportedly, for Axiom.
Okay.
So, anyone that was planning to write in with a follow-up, you don't need to. It's $100 million. We got it. Thank you.
Thank you. We've saved you the trouble.
There you go.
All right, links in the show notes if you want more details about the Dell results, but it is a good deal. They did have, frankly, a great quarter, and of course, AI is the reason. And speaking of AI, Nvidia also announced results for its Q2 2026. For the quarter, revenues were $46.7 billion, up 56% from a year ago. Net income was $26.4 billion, up 59% year over year. So fantastic results. However, there may be slight cracks beginning to show. Nvidia's share price dipped very slightly after the CEO, Jensen Huang, offered a third quarter forecast that a Reuters article described as tepid. We have to say that tepid is relative when it comes to AI infrastructure. Reuters also reports that Huang is expecting $600 billion in data center capital spending by U.S. hyperscalers. Of course, that's not all going to NVIDIA. Some of it's got to go to construction, power, cooling, networking, et cetera. Still, though, a huge pool of money, a fair portion of that is likely to go to NVIDIA. Johnny, market watchers, and I think us just out of curiosity are sort of wondering, when is this build out going to slow down or stop or even, burst like a bubble? Do you have feelings here?
I do, but before I jump into those, I just have to explain why I'm smiling. I have a friend who is raising a passel of kids and has retired at the young age of something like 35, thanks to having worked at Nvidia, which I did not realize because the couple both worked in Silicon Valley, and I knew where he worked. And then one day I saw her wearing an Nvidia T-shirt, and I went, "Oh, I get it. That's why you can afford to live on a boat." so that's right. All I could think of was, "Thank you, Nvidia. My friends appreciate it." But
yeah, seriously.
But moving forward, I am starting to see some slight cracks in the general AI market. And what I mean by cracks or weaknesses, I've seen a number of pieces that haven't gotten tromped all over on LinkedIn lately, saying something I've been saying for a couple of years, which is AI is not intelligence. By any stretch of the imagination, it's not. And the argument that people have been making all along is just let us scale it up and eventually AGI will result. And essentially, at this point, you're seeing the folks that have expertise in this area coming out loud and strong saying, no, this will not happen. AI has lots of great characteristics, or LLM-based AI has lots of great characteristics, but it is not intelligence. It will never be intelligence. It has, when we were talking about it earlier with HPE's announcement, it's a great user interface, okay? And it's a great search engine, okay? I mean, it doesn't function like a search engine, but it does what search used to do. It essentially compiles the known wisdom on any one particular area and dishes it up in a summary. That's very valuable. That can be incredibly useful. There are use cases for it, but it is not intelligence. And I think I can't estimate what percentage of the recent bubble is associated with this inaccurate sense that it really is intelligence and is going to become intelligence. And if you aren't doing it, you're doomed. I mean, no, just no. That was never the case. It's still not the case. And I'm worried that when a whole lot of people start realizing this, they're going to be shocked, because I guess they weren't paying attention for the past 2.5, 3 years when people were saying, look, it's just autocomplete on steroids. Okay.
Right.
That's what it is.
Right.
So you're starting to see articles come out saying, 97% of all AI proof of concepts have not generated an ROI, and things like that. And I think that's simply because people haven't figured out how to change their work processes to incorporate AI, much the way, 20, 30 years ago, we had to change our work processes to incorporate the internet.
Sure.
But no, the internet never became intelligent. And the difference is we're pitching AI as if it's going to somehow be intelligent. So that's a long-winded way of saying I fear that people are going to overreact when they suddenly realize something that's been obvious and loudly stated for the past couple of years, but is getting louder. So we'll see.
Yeah, another note, in our human infrastructure newsletter, I linked to a story by someone at Praetorian Capital who did some back of the envelope math looking at the money being spent on AI data centers, the CapEx involved, and then trying to calculate the revenue required to get a return on investment on the spending and also to cover depreciation. And his conclusion is basically like that AI could never generate enough revenue to make up for that. So it's not that AI is bad or it doesn't work. This author says he likes AI and uses the tools himself and anticipates it will be a technology that will thrive. But what's coming is a serious correction for this huge AI infrastructure build out. We just don't know when.
That is exactly the correct statement. And I think the tip off is he says these tools. Because if you treat AI like a tool, then you're going to budget for it like a tool. You're not going to go running around with your head falling off going, oh my God, all the jobs are going away because of this tool. The word here is tool. It is an interesting, useful technology. Browsers are interesting, useful technologies. Do we have to remake the entire energy infrastructure of the universe to handle browsers? No. And same thing with AI. So yeah, that's another way to look at the same thing. No, I mean, people will eventually run out of money to throw at things, and then it'll be interesting.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't think it's going to hit Nvidia just yet. Third quarter, I think Jason Wang may be trying to deliver a bit of a soft landing to folks, which is exactly what you're supposed to do. You start ratcheting down expectations as you go so that you're not going to surprise anybody with your performance. Yeah,
the other thing is even if you can continue to print money, making 56%, being up 56% year over year every quarter, that's just not sustainable, especially as next year you're comparing it to this year's results. So I think he probably is doing a little bit of like, hey, we're fine, but don't keep expecting miracles every quarter.
Exactly. Yeah. So, my friends, they have a boat. Maybe they don't want to plan to get a fleet.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, that does wrap up today's network break. Jonna, where can folks find you online?
Best way is to hit me up at Nemertes, nemertes.com, which is NEMERTES.com, and hit the contact us. I'm also on LinkedIn.
I'm Drew Connery Murray. I'm on Blue Sky at DrewCM, blogging at packetpushers.net. I also wrote a horror novel, if you're interested. It's a horror/historical fiction. It's called The Haunting of Edward Drake. You can find it at Amazon or on Goodreads or on Barnes & Noble if you're interested in that kind of thing. Thanks to our sponsor, Do It. And thanks to our follow-up. And if you've got more follow-up for us, hit us up, packetpushers.net/FU. And don't forget, we've got merch, a dozen podcasts you can subscribe to, an industry blog, 2 weekly newsletters, a community Slack group, a YouTube channel, an IRC group, and more. It's all at packetpushers.net, all free, no login required. As always, thanks for listening.